All right. Looks like our recording has started, so I will kick us off here. Welcome to the Evergreen Lost or Missing Person Form Training Session. My name is Leslie Miska, and I'm the Office of Aging and Disability Services Information Services Manager. I will be leading today's training session. Next slide, please, Nikki. During today's training session, we will cover the following topics: an introduction to Evergreen, person record alerts, lost or missing person form, and lost or missing person queries. Next slide, please, Nikki. Prior to this training, you should have watched the Evergreen microlearning videos. If you have not yet watched them, please make sure you take a look at them. These are brief videos that are available on the Evergreen project website at maine.gov/dhhs/EIS/Evergreen. The videos provide training for the following topics: search, which is an introduction to Evergreen and how to use the search function to access person records, staff records, location and organization records. Dashboards. There are two different types of dashboards in the Evergreen system. One is for the system user, that's your My Dashboard. And then there are dashboards for each of our individual person records. There's also a microlearning video on the person record itself, which is where we capture all the demographic and personal information. There's one on health information, which is a comprehensive collection of all of the information like diagnoses, allergies, medications, etc. There's a microlearning video on queries and notifications, which are tools that will help you manage your outstanding work or actions that you need to take in the system. There's one for progress notes, which is where you'll document your notes with regard to the persons that you're serving. And then there's one on attachments, which will teach you how to upload supplemental documents to the Evergreen person record. Please note that we will not be covering all of this information today, so you will want to be sure to watch those videos if you haven't already, or if you just want to watch them again as a refresher, you certainly can do that as well. Next slide, please, Nikki. Participants have been added to the training session in listener mode. Therefore, your line is muted. We do want to hear your questions though, so we ask that you type them into the Q&A. You can find that icon on your Zoom menu. If you don't see it right away on your menu, it may be under the More and 3-dot ellipses icon. So just click on that, find QA, you can open that up, type your questions throughout the presentation at any time. And when we get to the end of the slides, I'll answer as many questions as I can live on the call. We should have plenty of time to get through all of them, but if for some reason we can't, I will certainly make sure that we respond to those questions on our frequently asked questions on our website. Next slide, please, Nikki. There are two different sections of the Evergreen system. There's the Adult Protective Services side of the system, which is where the APS reports are collected. And then there's the Evergreen person record side of the system, which is where we're going to focus our efforts today for training purposes, because that's where our EIS functionality is going to live, is under the Evergreen person record. However, it's important to note that the person record itself is shared, and that's where we store all of the relevant details such as demographics, identifiers like a number, social security number, health information, etc. So our Adult Protective Services staff, as well as our public guardianship conservatorship staff, will also have access to view the Evergreen person record and or modify some of that data. Next slide, please, Nikki. Some of the benefits of Evergreen include a robust help center, which has the ability to reset your own password, system-generated notifications for lost or missing persons, the ability to run role-specific queries to see outstanding actionable items and help you keep your work tasks moving, an enhanced person record with centralized data capture. We're going to be capturing things like history, health information, alerts on top of the demographics at the person record level, so that that can be shared amongst users that have access to that person record. The display of common data within forms rather than recapturing it So if a form that you're creating needs to have the person's date of birth or their address or maybe their guardianship details or something else along those lines, instead of asking you to recapture that on every single form, we'll display that from within their person record so that you don't have to recapture it. Standardized data capture. So Evergreen does have required fields. Those will be indicated by a red asterisk or possibly a yellow vertical bar at the beginning of the field itself, or sometimes both. Field level validations. So the system will ensure the proper format of the content that you're entering in each field. So if it's a date field, it will only allow you to enter dates in the proper format. If it's a numeric field, it will make sure that you're only adding numeric characters rather than both alpha and numeric. And forms have workflows and business rules built right in to ensure that we're capturing data in a standard and consistent way for better reporting. Next slide, please, Nikki. My dashboard is the first page a staff member or yourself, the system user, will see upon login. My dashboard is your own personal staff dashboard. And at the top of the screen, when you log in, you'll see the top level white persistent navigation. Next to the Evergreen logo is your search bar. This is a quick keyword search. You can type keywords in here and hit enter, and it will provide you search results. Or you can use the two icons to the right, the clock with the arrow pointing to the left, the counterclockwise looking icon is your search history. So you can access that to just research on one of the most recent 20 searches that you've done. Or you can use the little magnifying glass with the plus sign in it to get to your advanced search. This will allow you to narrow your search results more by putting your keyword in an appropriate field, like last name, for example. And then there are other icons and descriptions up here for other areas of the site that you can access. Below that navigation is your dashboard. The program administrator, so I was logged in with the program administrator role when I took this screenshot. They will see these three tiles. The tile to the far left is the announcements tile, and this is always indicated with the orange background. And this tile is available for all system users and will have messages from our vendor FEI systems on things like upcoming scheduled maintenance where the system might be down, or it might also have like upcoming holidays, so you know that the help desk might be unavailable during the closure, or other things that all system users might need to be aware of. The middle tile that's titled Messages Inbox is a feature in Evergreen that's similar to email. This is contained within Evergreen, however, so all of the records, all of the content that passes back and forth in messages will be stored right within the system. So this can be used to communicate with other system users. For example, maybe an assigned public guardianship conservatorship representative or an assigned community case manager or BI care coordinator. And then the tile to the far right, the My Notes tile, is a feature that's similar to like sticky notes or a notepad, if you ever use that on your smartphone device or a tablet or even your laptop. It will allow you to capture a note title and then the note context, and it will store it under your My Profile. And if your role has the ability to create progress notes, you can later promote that note to a person progress note if needed. Or you can just simply create little notes for yourself that don't need to be promoted to a progress note. Next slide, please, Nikki. The lost or missing person form should be filled out whenever a person receiving public guardianship conservatorship or services at a DHHS crisis house cannot be located. It can also be used if a provider notifies the department that a person has gone missing from the provider's facility. Next slide, please, Nikki. To create a lost or missing person form, the user should navigate to the lost missing persons record and then click on the Forms Plans icon in the green primary navigation menu to the left side of the screen. I have circled that icon in red and the background appears white because I was clicked into that screen when I took this screenshot. This icon, the Forms and Plans icon will take you to the All Forms List page. From here, you will click on the plus New Form button in the upper left-hand corner of the central content area. This will open up the pop-up modal like the one that you see in the center of the screenshot. From here, you would choose Lost or Missing Person under the Guardianship Conservatorship category and move to step 2, where you will confirm that you are sure you want to create the form. Next slide, please, Nikki. Upon creating the form, the system will navigate the user into the Lost or Missing Person form. Like other forms in Evergreen, the Lost or Missing Person form will be in a status of in progress. The completion requirements will display an orange dotted circle indicating that the required fields for submission have not yet been populated. That's because you just created the form. All sections of the form will be collapsed by default, and you can use either the Expand All icon to open them all at the same time, or you can use the caret icon to the left of each header to manually expand and collapse one section at a time, as shown here. I had manually expanded the initial information for Lost or Missing Person section before I took this screenshot. This section was auto-populated by the system with an alert message telling the creator to submit updates daily until the person is located. The guardianship information, if that exists, the person's date of birth, living arrangement, address, any active safety alerts from their record, and active diagnoses and medications from their health information was pre-populated by the system. You can scroll to populate the lost or missing person information, or you can click on the toggle icon in the upper right-hand corner of the content area to open the quick scroll menu. The quick scroll menu will display all of the sections of the form, which at the time of creation is just this one section, initial information. Next slide, please, Nikki. To populate the lost or missing person information, you will hover over that section of the form. You should see the pencil icon appear. You can click anywhere in that section to open up an edit pop-up modal like the one shown in the center of this screenshot. You will be required to provide the date and time that the person was discovered missing, as well as the date and time that the person was last seen. If you do not know the exact times, you can check the "Is this approximate" checkbox to indicate that the times are not exact. Next, you will be required to provide the last known location. You can then select as many type of risks as the situation presents. If you select at least one item from the type of risk list, then the option for none will become grayed out and you will not be able to select that choice without first unchecking all of the other selections. If other is selected, you will be presented with a text box for describing the other type of risk. Next slide, please, Nikki. If you select any type of risk besides none, you will be required to describe the risk. The next 3 text boxes also contain ghost or guiding text and the information icon symbol, which is a little light bulb symbol next to the field label name. If you click on the little light bulb icon, it will display a pop-up window with the same guiding text that you see in the text fields. So I had populated level of functioning and circumstances of current situation, but I had not populated anything in relevant history, so that you can see that there is some guiding text there. These fields are all required in order to capture the level of functioning, circumstances of current situation, and any relevant history. Next slide, please, Nikki. After that, you will select all of the parties who have been notified. The option of none and other work the same way here as they did in the type of risk field. There is also an optional notification details field. Next slide, please, Nikki. The final 3 required fields in this section include a description of any actions that have been taken to locate the person, any planned actions to be taken in the future, and any additional details. The system will auto-populate the staff member and date timestamp with the logged in user's name and the date time when this content gets saved. Next slide, please, Nikki. Once you have populated all of the required fields, your completion requirements icon will change to green check marks as displayed here. To submit the lost or missing person form, you will click on the status dropdown and select the submit option. This change in status will trigger the system to send notifications to users with the executive manager role, crisis program administrator role, and the program administrator for the district in which the person lives. The system will also submit a notification every 24 hours reminding the submitter to provide a daily update. The close option should only be used if the form was created in error. Next slide, please, Nikki. Once the form has been submitted, the status will change to pending disposition. The completion requirements will reset to show the orange dotted circle again. The initial information section will be set to read only, and two new sections will appear in the quick scroll menu, one for updating information and one for providing a disposition. To add an update, you will click on the plus add update button, and the add update modal will appear as displayed in the center of this screenshot. There are three required text fields in this section. One for additional actions taken to locate the person, one for future planned actions to be taken, and any additional information learned since the most recent update. Just like the initial information section, the staff member and date timestamp will be auto-populated by the system upon saving. Each time an update is saved, the system will trigger notifications to the executive manager role, crisis program administrator role, and the program administrator for the district in which the person lives. Updates can be made as often as needed, but should be made at least daily. Next slide, please, Nikki. Once the person has been located, the disposition section can be populated. The disposition section includes required fields for the date and time the person was found. The system will then calculate the time missing between the last seen on date and the time and date that the person was found. In this example, the person was missing for 14 hours. You will be required to provide the location where the person was found and to select the condition the person was in when found. The choices which are displayed in the zoomed window with the thick black border to the right of that field are unharmed, injured, hospitalized, detained, incarcerated, deceased, other, or unknown. If other is selected, you will be required to provide a description of the other condition. An optional additional details field is also available. And consistent with other sections of this form, the staff member and date timestamp will be auto-populated by the system upon saving. Next slide, please, Nikki. Once you have populated all of the required fields, your completion requirements icon will change to the green check marks as displayed here. To complete the lost or missing person form, you will click on the status dropdown and select the complete option. This change in status will trigger the system to send notifications to the executive manager role, crisis program administrator role, and the program administrator for the district in which the person lives. I'm now going to steal the screen share from Nikki, and I'll log you in and navigate you to one of my test person records and show you how to create a lost or missing person form. I'm going to log in as the program administrator role. So depending on your role, you may or may not see everything, or you may see more than what you're seeing with this test account. And this is a test environment, so we may run into some hiccups here, but hopefully it will behave nicely for us during our time together. So I've keyed the name of the person record that I want to search for into my quick search, and I've gone ahead and hit enter, and it's provided me some results that might be matching. So I just simply click on the row that I want to access that person record. And so now I'm within the context of Leslie Test's person record, and this is Leslie Test's person dashboard. And over here is my left primary navigation. And from here, I can go to the forms and plans icon. And this is the all forms list page. So it's showing me all of the forms that have been created on this person record. I've been very busy with this test record. And I'll use this little plus new form icon, and it will pop up that modal that I showed you. And from here, I will scroll to the guardianship conservatorship section and choose the lost or missing person and select next and save. And this is my new missing person form. And as you can see, I have the quick scroll here. I can expand all, and it will expand this one section for me. And I can scroll to view the guardianship details, the lost or missing person profile details, diagnoses, medications, all this content just auto-populated from my person record. I'd already created all this information on my person record. And then down here is where I actually need to fill out the questions. And you can see as I'm hovering over this, my little pencil icon is appearing. And so I can literally click anywhere in here, and it will open up the modal for me. And then I can go ahead and start filling out all of these questions. So I can populate all of this and then save. And then once I've populated all of this, I can change this to, I can select submit, and that will put this form into a complete status and then waiting for my updates. And I'm hoping that Miranda has joined us and can bring our slides back up. We're doing a little switcheroo here. Looks like Miranda's on. Awesome. Thank you, Miranda. In addition to the lost or missing person form, the person record contains both critical alerts and alerts for safety and environmental concerns. Next slide, please, Miranda. The alerts for safety and environmental and critical alerts are managed in the person record. All active alerts are displayed on the person summary tab. In this example, there is an active critical alert for Leslie Testing, that's the person record, which describes that she has been missing since November 28, 2023. There is also an active safety alert and an environmental alert. Next slide, please, Miranda. All right, I am going to steal the screen share back again. I always forget that I have to hit share a second time. It takes me a minute. I'm going to log back in as the program administrator. And this time, I'm going to use a different person record. And I'm going to go over here to the person summary, which is where all the sort of critical information is going to show up for you. And you can see here that this critical alert, Leslie has been missing since November 29th, 2023. She was last seen at her home on November 27th, 2023. If you know anything about her whereabouts, please reach out to our assigned case manager. So that critical alert is displaying here, meaning that it's active, and it says right up here that it's active. If that alert is no longer accurate, the person has been found, then the case manager or somebody else that has access to edit the person record would come here to the person record. They would go to the critical alert section. They would edit this critical alert and unselect the active checkbox. And now if you go to the summary, you can see here that it's indicating no critical alert records are available. So all system users that have access to this person record, when they come to the summary, they won't see any active critical alerts anymore. I'm going to stop sharing and let Miranda give us the slides back again. Queries are used to track outstanding tasks or work actions that you need to take in the system. Next slide, please, Miranda. User roles who have access to create or view the lost and missing person form also have access to run the associated queries. Queries are accessed by clicking on the queries icon in the top level white persistent navigation menu. From here, you'll be brought into the queries section of the system, and you'll use the filter icon to run the query that you're interested in running. Lost or missing person has two queries, an in-progress query and a pending disposition query. In this example, I ran the pending disposition query, and pending disposition will return results for forms which have been submitted and do not yet have a disposition. For example, the person is still missing. The in-progress query will return results for forms which have been created but have not yet been submitted. So if you created it and you were in the middle of populating it and you just didn't get around to actually hitting submit, it would show up on the in-progress query. In this example, there were 22 results. And you can see at the top there was my Leslie test record that was submitted but not yet completed when I took this screenshot. To see the initial information and all the updates that have been added to a lost or missing person form, you can simply click on the row that you want to review, and the system will navigate you directly into that form. Query results can also be exported for further analysis. Once the person has been found, the disposition has been added, and the form is set to complete, that record will no longer show up when running this query. Next slide, please, Miranda. So those are the steps for completing a lost or missing person form. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type those into the Q&A right now. We'll get to questions in just a moment. In the meantime, I do want to share some next steps with you. So the next step for you will be to practice creating lost or missing person forms and other forms in our sandbox training environment. We do plan to send out individual emails to all of our EIS system users this Friday, December 15th. There are approximately 2,700 users of the system. So it will take us a little while to get those out. That may trickle into early next week, but please keep your eye out for your email. The email will contain the sandbox training URL, the credentials that you should use to log in. These credentials, keep in mind, will likely have more access than your production user role will have. And that is because we want you to be able to practice and not have to rely on other system roles to keep forms moving through the workflow or edit things on the person record that your role may or may not have access to edit. So you will have a role that gives you more access so that you can successfully familiarize yourself with the system. And you'll also be assigned a person record that's just for you. So you can modify that person's record, add as many forms as you want, edit those forms, really run queries, reports, just play around and familiarize yourself with everything that's there. Just please make sure that you don't reset the password for the credentials that you've been given, because they are shared and you will lock everybody that has those credentials out. So if you're struggling to log in, please reach out to our team and we'll help you with that. In the meantime, while you're waiting for your training login, you can certainly go to our website at maine.gov/DHHS/EIS/Evergreen. You can find all of our informational webinars at the bottom of that first page. There's some great webinars if you didn't get a chance to participate in them live, one for the person record, one for reportable events and progress notes, and one for our person-centered planning to prior authorization process. And then you can also click on our training page, which is in the left menu, and that will bring you to our training site that has all of those micro-learning videos right at the top. There's hyperlinks, so you can listen to all those micro-learning videos if you haven't already, or if you want to listen to them as a refresher. And then you can also read all of our frequently asked questions that are out there on our website right now. We are also, if they're not up there already, they will be in the next day or so, adding all of the training sessions from last week, all of the recorded training sessions from last week. So there is a session for this lost or missing person, as well as all the sessions that we did around employment data forms, reportable events, and several others last week. Develop DD intake and eligibility. So you can listen to any of the recorded trainings that you would like. And then we're also asking that you tie up any loose ends in EIS. So if your role has access to create reportable events or progress notes, please make sure that those are in a complete state by 5 o'clock on Friday, January 12th, 2024. If you have a progress note that you need to enter on Friday and you're not going to have time to complete the note, we would ask that you hold that until Tuesday, January 16th, so that so you don't have to re-enter it or enter it twice. So even if you are unable to complete a reportable event or a progress note on Friday, January 12th, it will migrate into Evergreen. It will just be in a closed state, so you won't be able to edit it, and you may need to re-enter it if you hadn't finalized it. Other forms like person-centered plans, DD intake and eligibility forms, behavior management plans, things like that, those will migrate in an in-progress state. So whatever data has been captured and whatever status they're in EIS, they'll migrate to Evergreen in that same status. So you don't need to worry about those, just reportable events and progress notes. And then if you haven't already, we would encourage you to sign up for one of the January Q&A sessions. These are 2-hour-long sessions that are being offered the week of January 8th, and they're being offered by our vendor, FEI Systems, and they're truly just an hour for you to come and ask your questions and get answers. And that will be after you've completed your technical trainings and had a chance to navigate around in the training environment. So you may have new questions that you want to ask. Lastly, if you have any questions even after this webinar throughout the months of December and January, you can always email them to evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov. We are monitoring that email, and we will try to respond to those questions as quickly as possible. Next slide, please, Miranda. So we have reached the Q&A portion of our time together. We do still have about 25 minutes. So if you have questions, please go ahead and type those into the Q&A now, and I'll start responding to the ones that we have. Michelle asks, if a person is missing, for example, a week, do you enter in each day, or can you say ongoing? Good question, Michelle. The intent is that you would enter and update every day. So even if it's been 7 days, you should still go in and enter and update any new information that you have related to that lost or missing person. Will be helpful for everybody that's out there looking for them. Michelle also asks, I know that we are going to get login information soon. With that being said, is there a place within the system that we can play around with a test client? Yeah, so I just shared that information, Michelle, and I see that you had entered that question before I shared that. Shannon asks, what about PCPs that are open but not yet completed? Don't need to worry about those, Shannon. Those will migrate in progress. Brandy asks, will we be able to anchor our clients, or will we have to search for them each time? Great question, Brandy. So Evergreen doesn't have the concept of anchor the way that EIS does. Once you've searched for a person, you are in the context of that person record. If you have a role of something like community case manager or BI care coordinator, where you have an explicit relationship to person records, your dashboard will also have a tile called My Caseload. This will be all of your actively assigned person records, so you can navigate to those person records just by clicking on their name in your caseload list. Other user roles that don't have explicit assignments will need to use their search and or their search history. So if you've searched for a person once, it will be in your history, and the history will contain your 20 most recent searches. So you can just click on your little history icon if that's easier than typing their name every time, or person ID, or whatever it is that you're using. Michelle asks, so our caseload will show up in Evergreen, or do we need to add them in? Yeah, they'll just automatically show up for you, Michelle. You don't need to add them. Anybody that you're actively assigned to will automatically show up in your caseload list. So as you get new assignments, they'll show up there. As people are unassigned because you're no longer their case manager, or they've passed away or something like that, they'll drop off your caseload list. It will automatically update based on your active assignments. That does look like all the questions that I have in the Q&A right now. So if anybody has any other questions, please go ahead and add them to the Q&A. I'm happy to respond to those. In the meantime, I will point out that Nikki and Miranda have been helpful and posted our training page and our website to the chat. So if you want to grab that, and Miranda's also added our evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov email. So if you want to grab those out of the chat, you can certainly do that right now. And feel free to submit questions to us if you think of any of them after we adjourn today. Jenny asks, will the new system lock out when you're not active? Great question, Jenny. So yes, Evergreen does have a timeout. However, it's a lot more user-friendly than EIS's timeout is. So Evergreen can actually recognize that you're using the system, even if you're not keying directly into a field. If you're paging through, like you're moving through a forms page, if you're clicking anywhere in there, if you're even mousing over, it can actually recognize activity, and it won't start that timeout clock until you're truly sitting with the application open and idle, not doing anything at all. Then the clock will start ticking, and before it logs you out, it will pop up a little message telling you that it's going to log you out and asking you if you want to stay logged in, and you can confirm that you want to stay logged in. So like if you're reading something pretty lengthy and that pops up, you can say, yes, I want to stay logged in, and it won't log you out. The only time it will really log you out is if you're open, you didn't log out, you're idle, and you've maybe stepped away from your computer or you've gotten distracted. And then if you don't see that pop up, it will log you out. So I am encouraging everybody to make sure that if you step away from your computer, or if you're, needing to engage in a conversation where you're not paying attention to your computer, you may want to just make sure that you hit save in whatever page you're on, whatever modal you're on, to try to save the information that you've already captured so that you don't have to retype that in. Michelle asks, so if we get a referral, it will automatically show. We don't have to reach out to the liaison to get access to them. Great question, Michelle. So if somebody new comes into the system through developmental disabilities, I'm going to use that as an example, they will go through our DD intake and eligibility referral process. And the once they're determined medically eligible or program eligible, for DD services, their intake and eligibility form will be marked as DD eligible, and then they'll be offered case management services. And once the person accepts case management services, our DD intake and eligibility coordinator will create a case management acceptance form in the system, and it will indicate the case management agency that they would like to work with. And then our community case management liaisons will still do that initial location assignment. So they will assign the case management agency. If the case manager is known, like the specific case manager is known at the time, then they can also do that case manager assignment. But if the case manager has not been selected yet, then the supervisor within that case management agency will still have the ability to do the case manager assignment. Once the case manager assignment has been created, whether that be by the community case management liaison or a supervisor within the case management agency, then that person will show up in your caseload list. And that does look like all the questions that I have for today. So I want to thank all of you for joining us for today's training session. We will post this recording sometime early next week to our website, but the recording from last week will be posted either today or hopefully by tomorrow, if you'd like to refer back to it. Everybody have a great week, and thank you for joining us.